Today I'ma wake up a new man, driving a new road, develop a new plan. I'll never be blue, man, whatever the view, man. Go to a new beach and get me a new tan. I'ma write down every single thought. I goes on my wall, I win, I never fall. I've been gone for a minute, yeah, had to be free. You want it, I got it, so tell me what you need. I'm unchained, unfazed, and unwilling. It's a new day, new world, we all winning. I'm up late, up early, I gotta get it. Keep working, now we gotta make a million. Go get it, you got it, I see it. Go get it, you got it, I see it. Go get it, you got it, I see it. Go get it, you got it, I see it. Go get it, you got it, I see it. Go get it, you got it, I see it. I know you could do it. All you gotta do is put your mind to it. Wake up, I'm on to the next. New day, I gotta do my best. Every day I put the work in. The grind never stop, you ain't never see me rest. See me on top, I never fall. I speak my truth and turn it to law. Do it for the drive, you know it's really my passion. Never gonna stop me, really I'll make it happen. I gotta get up and grab it. The money want me to have it. What more could I say? I'm top billing. I grew from the dirt, guess I had to make a million. I grew up, I swear I rose from the valley. Every day I put the work in, I gotta keep a tally on beat. Pockets stay heavy, when you see me don't leave. Falling days in the streets, had homies in the struggle. Go get it, you got it, I see it. Go get it, you got it, I see it. Go get it, you got it, I see it. Go get it, you got it, I see it. Go get it, you got it, I see it. Go get it, you got it, I see it. I know you could do it. All you gotta do is put your mind to it.
Oh, there we go. Gotta love it when the music just fades out entirely. What's going on, everybody? It's just going to be me tonight. I've got a pile of questions. Thank you again for everybody getting them in. I tried to plan it, like I said last week, Thursday nights. And this is going to be the first one. I know it doesn't work out great timing-wise, but that's just kind of the nature of the beast. I wanted to make sure I kind of got the schedule going. You know what? Screw it. Come here. Who doesn't love a stream with a puppy? That's right. Say hi. Say hi. This is Dallas, everybody. Normally, she's not in here for these because she's a loud pup sometimes. Well, especially the last couple weeks. But Mom's out running errands right now, and so she's got to hang out in here until Mom gets home. Huh? Oh, it's still got away from Mama. There you go. Go back to eating your bone. Good girl. Yeah, spelling is hard, Dimitri. That's for sure. I figured viewers are going to be down a little bit during the finals game, but that's kind of what it goes. Beagle to PDX. Listen, I said she looks like a beagle, not Beal. But for anybody wondering, yes, she's a Chewini Poo, and yes, it's as stupid a name as you could possibly imagine. But I love the little pup. But again, thank you everybody for getting the questions in. There was a truckload of them, and I'm going to get to them kind of line by line, post by post. There were a couple that pertained to players. There was a couple that pertained to obviously the coaching leak that we got from Shams. Dame at the Olympics. I want to try to space this stuff out as much as possible during the season, or actually during the off season, just because it allows room for stuff to breathe. Because stuff's going to move slow, probably for the next 2 weeks, and then we're going to start ramping up. You're going to start kind of understanding. Hell, even if stuff doesn't go public, I'm going to start hearing stuff that's going to happen a little bit sooner, and I can have a better picture, kind of what's going on. I've got a little bit of a teaser today with some of the free agency stuff. Speaking of which, let me go ahead and load that up in the background for what I think is going to end up popping up here soon. And that's just kind of how it's going to go. As things start to ramp up, I'll have a little bit more insight and kind of know which way things are kind of slated to go. But a lot's going to change. So it all depends on which way you go, whether it's looking at CJ McCollum deals or who moves where within the draft. I think that's going to impact a lot. I know a couple teams are chasing that number 1 pick. Cleveland's got a pretty hefty offer that they can make. I know that they have real interest in Cade. They also would be perfectly thrilled with Evan Mobley. So it's going to be interesting to see if OKC is willing to convince Detroit to move off the number 1 for the pile of picks that they have. It's going to be a little bit weird, I think, to see how this kind of all comes together come draft night because of the short turnaround. She's made this team impossible to root for. I don't know about that, Corey. I think O'Shea is impossible to root for. I don't think that's... And if we're still at the point where people are trying to say, no, you give him the benefit of the doubt, this, that, and the other, I don't think you can. I genuinely don't think you can. That's just where I stand. I think that there's way too many missteps, way too many issues, way too many problems. Just simple stuff. And if you want to go real extreme, the latest True Hoop came out and he got beat. Like they drug Neil pretty handily, and I find myself reading it going, yeah, that tracks. You match that up with what? I mean, let me put it in the chat, guys. Like I see you guys have made this team impossible to root for. How so? Like how is the like? Are we talking like the Billups search and bungling it? Are we talking about hiring Billup? Are we talking about not moving for guys? Like, I think that there's different levels to this stuff because I genuinely think McNeil has made a lot of missteps, particularly over the last 10 years. This isn't like a new thing for me. Like if you're new here, I'm sorry, I'm going to sound incredibly negative because I've never believed in what this version of the team is or has been. It's good, it's fun. I can sit here and enjoy that Western Conference playoff run, and it has how fun and weird that was. I can enjoy Dame eviscerating Paul George and going for a 50-piece and simultaneously go, as fun as that was, and it was fun in that moment, and it's something I will never forget. Joe Shane and I on the quadruple overtime game were sitting there trying to figure out what was happening in that Denver game. It was insane. Like I don't think we got on air until like 12:30. It was insane. So like there's this idea that you can't be both. And number one, it's not true. There needs to be more nuance than that. And I think that's where I find myself. There's a lot of guys on this team that I like. I genuinely love watching Yusuf Nurkic play basketball. I love Dame. CJ, I'm okay. Like I just don't like the fit more than anything. Obviously, I love Ant. Cov's a hell of a player. More than anything, I love watching young guys develop their games. That's my favorite thing to watch. All right, so then we're getting some more in here. I know the feed's a little bit behind from where I'm at. I think it's about like a 30-second delay. So I'll get back to the Olympic stuff, Shelvin. Thank you. I will get back to that stuff because that's something I do want to talk about. Nibble, the team's refusal to get rid of Neil makes it hard for me. Zero oversight of him, it seems like, and it's a problem. Tony, it's hard rooting for a team you know doesn't have a chance. Too much self-love and not enough self-reflection. Jeremy, that run has weirdly done more harm than good. Yes, I do believe that. Sorry, David, I missed that one. Are you of the belief that Neil cares about nothing besides keeping his job? So I'm going to take these kind of in different order, but actually I want to hit yours first, David, in that selfishly think about where you are in life. Hey, Mom's Basement. There's Shiloh. That's the homie from back in the day. You haven't missed any of the good stuff. I'm literally just getting to it. Think about it selfishly in your own head. What you do in your day-to-day life that isn't about just you. And this is where I don't fault Neil. This is where I fault the oversight. And I think somebody else hit that in here. The whole idea of doing what's best for you, we have this conceptualized idea of what should and shouldn't happen, what's real and what's not, and there's reality. Trading CJ McCollum rocks the status quo. And almost nobody is doing that. Not just Neil. The exceptions are Daryl Morey's, the Danny Ainges, the Masai Ujiri's. But for the most part, not only that, that's his, and I made the joke about it on Twitter with the Gollum and the Precious and hold on to less, but that's his Precious. Because there's like a couple of schools of thought when it comes to the idea of who, what, when, where Neil can take credit for it. Is that Chad Buchanan did a lot of the legwork for Damian Lillard leading up to his draft. And I've heard some people say back and forth that it's Neil's pick. He pulled the trigger, but the team did all the work beforehand. There's no mincing of words when it comes to C.J. McCollum. That is a Neil Olshey pick. He can hold that one up to light, and the clarity is pure. That is his. It's a good pick. You look at that draft. That draft was awful. There's like 5 dudes from that draft who were like good players. The rest, sub-rotation level guys, a couple guys here or there. Don't get me wrong, you still have Giannis. And no, you don't get to go hindsight on Giannis because there was 2 or 3 teams that were stupid high on him. Nobody else was really chasing him the way that they were. They try to kind of keep it a secret. So in that regard, I think that has to frame how you think about Neil Olshey and how he handles C.J. McCollum and why he hasn't traded him. Because he could hang his hat on that. The whole idea of Tony Peters here, it's hard rooting for a team that you know doesn't have a chance, too much self-love and not enough self-reflection. Again, I think that's part of that, is that you've got this space that you're comfortable in. And it's hard to be uncomfortable. Like, it's a weird place to be. Like, being uncomfortable in that situation is a weird place because it's foreign and it's dangerous and it will get you to lose your job. There's only 30 of these jobs in the league. And I know this sounds like I'm defending Neil, but I want you guys to really understand the framework. And this is why I'm very careful with my word choice or demanding for people's jobs or anything along those lines. I would like to see a different general manager in if Neil is unwilling to make moves. And in the past, I have been told flat out he will not trade CJ. I have heard over the past 18 months that has changed, that it's about finding the right deal, that they are actually willing to do so, more so now than ever. But as far as, am I of the belief that Neil cares nothing besides keeping his job? No. But am I of the belief that is a prime motivating factor? Yes. But that's true for most people. Very few people, and here's kind of the ugly underbelly of, and not just basketball, professional sports in general. Most players are selfish. And rightfully so. You're talking about generational money. Like, that should be a thing. Like, you should, like, that's why when somebody leaves and goes and gets the bag, good, go get it. You're changing your life, your family's life, your kid's life, your kids' kids. Like, you have family members generations removed that are never going to have to work. Don't talk to me about loyalty in that regard. This is not the 60s. We're talking about too much damn money at this point. Excuse me. As far as the expectations part of this, and I saw somebody saying here, Jorge Masvidal. Nice, Clay. I appreciate that one. I saw the 2016 series. The clips was actually harmful. There's this whole issue of, particularly this year, and this is why I think, and I said this after that series, and because it was, to me, it's very true, in that you can't play the game anymore of, well, what if? They were mostly healthy, and if you tell me Zach Collins was the difference between them and beating the Suns or the Nuggets and the Suns, I'm just going to stop you. Just save your breath. It's not that I hate Zach. It's just we disagree on the value. Okay, let's just call it what it is. But yeah, I genuinely believe that overachieving at times has set them back. Their one opportunity to get good was 2017, and they blew that. Realistically. Because you look at the assets they have now, I like Ant. I really do. I think he's a good player. And other teams think he's a good player. He's commonly asked about. I think Nasir has a ton of potential. The Blazers had him mocked as a lottery pick, and they fell all the way down to what? Was that 24? They have assets, but the difference in assets between how they're viewed and how they could end up being, one of them's Donovan Mitchell, and the other one's Zach Collins. One of them's Bam Adebayo. One of them's John Collins. One of them's OG Anunoby. There's just so many different stops. And that's not even like a hindsight. Like, you could go back. The tweets are there from 2017 where the radio shows or the TV shows. Like they're all there. But that's kind of where it goes. Dragon. I can go in hindsight for Giannis. He was my pick for a large host of reasons. Well, listen, man, start pitching that stuff if you can find a few more of those. Yeah, Shiloh, exactly, dude. Everything's gonna be selfish in that regard when it comes to money. There's no doubt about it. And I don't blame them at all. This from Cody. We can all agree that Norman Powell absolutely does not want to come back to Portland, right? No. So the thing with Powell here is, and this is, think about it from this perspective. If I just told you everything that I said as far as framing it up for Neil Olshey, do you think that he is giving away one of his few young assets without having some sort of handshake agreement that there's at least an opportunity to retain Norman Powell? That's what you should kind of think about in that regard. Who would, if you truly believe that everything Neil does is to preserve his job, why would he then go and get rid of Gary Trent Jr. for a player that could leave him much in the same fashion that they did with Will Barton and Aaron Aflalo? Why would he repeat those same mistakes? I can tell you this because they didn't believe in the team that much. That doesn't matter. That's the thing, is that so you have to pick one side of the fence. Either he did it because he's protecting himself, or he did it because he doesn't care and he's trying to protect himself. So it has to fall on either side of the fence. So for me, I do believe that he was trying to make something happen in the best possible situation that he could. And in that regard, I think tampering exists for anybody who thinks that doesn't. Like the fact that Rodney Hood still got that deal after rupturing Achilles, that's not a coincidence. Like draw the lines. That's what I keep trying to tell people, that draw the lines. That's what makes sense. I would say Norm returning is probably a coin flip. It's the same level that I have for CJ getting traded. I think if those two things, Jeremy, if Powell walks and we lose Trent Jr. and Powell, that's grounds for removal more than anything else. Yeah, it's a pretty crappy mismanagement of assets. Realistically, I mean, you can slice it, whether you hate Neil, whether you love Neil, whether you're ambivalent. It's a pretty egregious mismanagement of assets. So, but yeah, that's the first domino. Like everybody's trying to. You can't trade CJ unless you know you have Norm locked up, but you can't lock up Norm without knowing you're going to trade CJ. It's the basketball version of the chicken or the egg. It's not a great situation to be in. Yeah, Shelvin, as far as the IG stuff, I made a joke when I tweeted out the Clippers stuff the other day about Morris and Batum both saying goodbye, it's been real, I'm out kind of deal. I did think it was a little bit weird that Nick was kind of like, I'm out, but the IG stuff, it kind of is what it is in that regard. But I genuinely think that they rolled out the red carpet. The house they got for him, the way they set it up, everything they did, they tried to make him feel at home was insane. Yeah, David, Norm did have a rough playoffs. He was still good, but he did struggle in that regard. There was something else in here I wanted to. Yeah, exactly, Jeremy. You don't do that deal unless you have some sort of agreement, and not necessarily that he would sign in Portland, but that you have a real opportunity. You would sit down, you would get that meeting, and that it would be this. Let's see. Yeah, exactly, Sheldon. Yeah, that's right. Quick had that article out there about him. Lessery, do you have a limit about how much to offer Powell? Market says 20. I think you're hurting me numbers 24. That's a Portland overpay. But you have this going for you in the sense of that he's coming from Toronto where the taxes are even less. It's the only market that the taxes are less favorable than Oregon. So in that respect, you can maybe kind of figure it out in between. But yeah, I think 24 is kind of because here's the thing. if you're moving CJ, if it's not Simmons, you've got to find the right pieces in between, right? You've got to find the right contracts that make sense for this team going forward because they're in financial hell. And if Jody Allen wants to sell the team, you got to have something. It's either got to be building towards something or it's got to be, hey, the cash flow is going to, come up a little bit as these contracts fall off. So I think that's probably your dividing line. 22 is the split the difference number. It hurts, but it doesn't hurt that bad. 24, once you pass 24, just the theory behind him being able to say he's 25 million, like that's a big number, right? And that's where the prestige and stuff like that stuff matters to those guys. But and yes, Jeremy, that's the whole idea of like the idea of flopping back and forth between the chicken or the egg with Norman and CJ, which one goes first. But these kind of things happen all the time as far as backroom agreements. So in that regard, I'm not worried. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. If it's not, it's not. But if it doesn't, woo! And that leads me to Corey. Feels like a messy divorce with Dame is inevitable anyways. I think I said this last week. I am of the mind that they have basically this offseason to figure it out. Now, that doesn't mean Dame's going to leave unequivocally, but if they botch this, if they botch this offseason, I think they're genuinely in trouble. I think that's something they're going to stumble into. Oh, there's the wife. She's got the puppy. Perfect. Yeah, Shiloh, that does matter. The respect comes from what's on the contract. Yeah, being able to say you're a $25 million man. Now, for you personally, it matters when those taxes start hitting. That part is for damn sure. But, yeah, I don't think it's inevitable with Dame. I still think there's a lot of opportunity to fix things. Their lack of assets and their contract situations, I think, is a bigger issue than anything else. But for me, I think it's still very much salvageable. Sean, does not re-signing Zack Collins do anything for our cap space? No, because they're in cap hell. Yeah, no, they are in cap hell. That's where they're at. The Zack news, from a purely basketball perspective, management, asset management, that kind of stuff, sucks. From a personal standpoint, you know what? Here, let me just. I don't even know why I have the headphones in right now. I don't need them, but let's go ahead and put all the cards on the table. Like, I get it. It sucks. Dimitri, as far as the Giannis stuff, I think him and Dame are very much in the same vein where they want to be in their markets. They do. And as far as Zack goes, I look at his injury and I look at the asset management. That part hurts. The Bucks have struggled with building around Giannis perfectly, but they have done everything they can. They paid his guy in Chris. They drafted relatively well. They mortgaged the entire future for Drew. So I think you need to see Portland be willing to mortgage the entire future for the next 4 years for Dame because he's that dude. I saw a question here that I missed. Cooper, who do you think gets a bigger deal, Trent Jr. or Norm? Norm will. I've always pegged Gary at around 16 to 18. 20 if a team is like if RFA if somebody wants to screw with Toronto's cap space. You can never count that out, but yeah, I think 16 to 18 is the real number. But I genuinely believe Norm's starting number is 20. If you want to get cheap, 18. But with the way free agent market is and the way the cash strap teams, or excuse me, the asset strap teams are out there, I think he's going to get some. Imagine if Norm was the shooting guard facing Campazzo Rivers Morris and not having to worry about defending 7-foot MPJ. Norm would be better, and he did win us one game. I don't think Terry misused Norm to the extent that I think gets pushed. But I do think forcing him into that position of being a 3 when he's not, suboptimal. I think that's where you're looking at Norm like, he wasn't the perfect player, but he was also played out of position. What happens if we actually, put him where he needs to be? Like, how much better is he optimized? So, again, thank you everybody for coming. I want to make sure I always try to stop and do this. For everybody who doesn't know, it was on the site. It was in the the body, the text. Thursday nights is when the live streams are going to happen. I have got some guests lined up for not only this, but for the podcast that you guys are going to really, really, really want to listen to. I do have a couple players lined up. Like I said before, you can probably guess who they are. But I am talking to a couple of the player chefs. I am talking to a couple of their trainers. I am talking to more than a few people out there. And again, please like the rate, review, subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to YouTube. I think we've grown like 500 subs in the past 3 weeks, which is when I really started, about a month ago is when I really started pushing the YouTube stuff. So thank you. Thank you. And I promise I do have more announcements coming. I'm still waiting for everything to be finalized. I've signed everything. Welcome to the legal world of broadcast and entertainment. So this is going to be cool. Let's see. This from David. I actually didn't read the Haynes article sign that Dame's leaving. I think he okayed him writing as a way to get fans off his back about the Chauncey hire. So I don't know if you guys saw the line from Dame today. Basically talking, you know what, I should probably just pull it up so I can actually quote it. Shout out Sean Hyken. Sean's the homie. He was in on the Zoom and got to ask Dame about the Chauncey stuff. And let me just go ahead and get this quote. This is from Dame. When I said that I didn't know, I meant right away when we let Terry go, I was asked about names that had been floated out there. And of the ones that had been floated out there, I said I like J. Kidd and I like Chauncey. So if you've paid attention for a while now, I have hinted over and over again that I don't believe that Dame was that invested in the coaching search of like dictating and hammering and ultimatums. That's not how Damian Lillard has ever operated. He will say, I like so-and-so, but it's never boom, this guy. That's not what it is. He's very self-aware and knows that, and I'll bring this up every opportunity because it's a fun one. Dame has said he can never run a team because if he ran this team, Sasha Pavlovich would still be on the team. So if you remember, Sasha was here in his rookie year. He has trouble letting go of guys. So, and I think that's what you saw here. And he was asked about he didn't know. I've heard from multiple people in multiple camps that Dame was not aware of the Chauncey stuff. Hell, I've been covering the league for 8 years. Hyken, I think, has been doing it for 10. Guys that I know in other markets that have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of followers on social media, did not know about the Chauncey stuff. That wasn't common knowledge, and pretending that it was is really stupid because it wasn't. So if everybody like coming after Dame in that regard was really stupid. But I also thought it was really simple as far as what Dame was doing. He was flexing his muscle a little bit and just kind of figuring it out. Let's see. There was something in here I saw. Norm Simmons, DJJ running the break. Yeah, I mean, they'd be stupid long, stupid athletic. There's not a lot of shooting there, but that's fun. I mean, listen, it's fun. This one isn't in here, but I do want to talk about like Derrick Jones Jr. having another opportunity. And that's one of the guys I do feel Terry used poorly. The Blazers' offense over the last couple of years has stagnated more and more and more. Exaggerated to the point by some people, but it did. The flip side is that I think that there's a point where even if the coach is lagging behind, let's use Bud as an example, if your best player loves them and they play hard for them, kind of hard to fire them. That's just how the NBA works. It's not as cut and dry as people would like it to believe. And again, this kind of goes back to the Olshey stuff. Like, you have to put yourself in that position. I would divorce myself. No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't, because you'd piss off your best player. So you have to keep that stuff in mind when you're like trying to frame this stuff. Derek Roberts, first time catching a live. Go Blazers. Hey, thanks for stopping by, man. Genuinely appreciate it. Let's read. As far as the information on Zack's injury, he rebroke it. That's what happened. So he had to have a third surgery. It's a bummer. NBA highlights. 10. I wonder where the other 9 are at. But guy kid. But I really think we need to make a move for a pick in this year's draft. I would be genuinely surprised if they didn't buy back into the second round. There are plenty of guys that I think the Blazers, because number one, the Blazers need somebody, and trying to fill it out with vet minimum guys over and over again is difficult. Shelvin would have loved if Norm got more minutes at the 2 and played DJ to disrupt Denver's offense. Plus, Norm is a great cutter, uses his strong body to feast on smaller guards. Nurk could have fed. Yeah, and like if you're looking at, you know what? I did see a question up here. I want to make sure I let you know. There was somebody who was asking about Vinny, I believe. Where is it at? I want to make sure I get. There it is, David. Thank you. I did notice it, so I'll swing back to that after I talk about this with Chauncey. So, in doing research, trying to figure out what Chauncey may or may not run, what the kind of things that they focused on with the Clippers, what he was involved with, and who he was involved with, and what they really kind of go. The biggest thing I think Chauncey impacted was playmaking, floor general leadership, a willingness to look and make the right pass. And I think that's probably, outside of defense, the most pressing issue for this team, because this team isn't made up of natural passers. Like, Dame's a good passer. He's not a great passer. CJ's probably a more gifted passer of the ball, but not a playmaker, if that makes sense. And I think part of that playmaking skill set is the ability to get downhill and get all the way to the rim. Nurk is probably your most gifted passer when it comes to vision. Like I said, they don't have a ton of guys as far as that are like watch Phoenix, watch Chris Paul, watch Book, or watch Jay Crowder. Not an incredibly gifted passer, but makes a lot of really good reads. I thought when Cove got here early on in the season, he was making the right reads and skip passes, and I think some of the nastiness of the offense that kind of gummed up with some isolation and some frustration got him to stop being that guy. Because you look at Houston, you want to talk about greased ball movement. That thing popped around. You can talk about Harden pounding the air out of the ball, which he did, but when that ball moved side to side, it popped with Houston. So I'm not too worried about that regard. But as far as the assistant coach stuff, and this is going to get back to it, Hollins is the name that I've heard for a while. Hollins, Atkinson, Fizdale were three names that I kept coming up. Fizdale went to L.A. Atkinson is going to, where the hell did he go? Lakers? I think he was signed with the Lakers. There's so much coach movement. Mosley is just now inking a deal with Orlando. But yeah, Hollins is always the guy. Vinny Del Negro has not coached in 8 years. He got kind of a bad rap. I talked to some folks who were with the Clippers at the time the other night, and I actually deleted a tweet last night because it was meant to make Neil look bad, I'll be honest. But it ended up making Vinny look worse. So I was like, Vinny's catching strays here. But he's been out of the league for a while, which is kind of hard to juxtapose that when we're told that the Blazers need X, Y, and Z, that they need to have, long pros that can relate to the players, that hold guys accountable. For everything I've ever heard about Vinny Del Negro, he's a great dude. Everybody loves Vinny, like just a good dude. Not Mr. Accountability. That's fine. Like Terry Stotts is not Mr. Accountability. Guys like Terry. It's a balancing act. So Scott Brooks for me is a hard pass. Like if you've heard my rant about coaching, I don't believe in coaching making that big of an impact. But, and here's the but, I do believe bad coaches hurt more than good coaches help. And I genuinely believe that Brooks is a bad coach. I dare anybody to spend time watching the Thunder over a 5-year stretch when they had three of the best players in the league, and then watch the Wizards for the last couple of years, and tell me what it is that Scott Brooks does. Tell me what he runs. Tell me what stands out. What is it about him that just, drives it home? Accountability and all. And no, it doesn't. It's just, I don't want him in Portland. He's one of the few coaches that I just look at and go, nope. Him, Jim Boylan, who they hilariously brought in. But there's quite a few guys on that list who are no. Hollins is fine. Hollins is beloved. He's a Portland guy. Got his name in the rafters. Bit of a hard ass. Cool. I'm fine with that. As far as the Vinny Del Negro thing being real, Shams is the only one I've heard that. There's obviously Neil Olshey connections. Neil hired him in Los Angeles. So, I don't know. I'll tell you this. That one caught me off guard. 100%. So I saw one in here. Deadly content. Can we get Jeremy Grant for a CJ trade? So instead of like dunking on you, I'm not trying to do that. I want you to take a step back and frame this for a second. If you're the Detroit Pistons and you're in a rebuild mode and you've got a pile of young dudes, you've got like 8 centers, and then you've got the number 1 pick in the draft, why would you want to give up a 25-year-old, 26-year-old Jeremy Grant? It just doesn't make any sense to me. Because realistically, he's a perfect kind of player to cover up for Cade. Rookies suck on defense. It's just it's such the exception to the rule. It's insane. The game just moves faster. Everybody's bigger, faster, stronger, smarter. Like even guys that we talk about, they don't have a basketball IQ. They will make rookies look stupid. So Jeremy Grant's a great player. His length, his athleticism, his defensive IQ, his willingness to be a pro, like that's going to be the right kind of thing to have around Cade. Now, he's not untradeable. I just don't believe the Blazers have the right assets necessarily to move him. But Jeremy Grant is exactly the kind of player I would love to have in Portland. Now, could they acquire Grant in like a 3-way? Yeah, I think that's possible, but what does that look like? You have to find a team that needs some scoring punch, that maybe wants to give up some young players or some expiring contracts and some picks. Okay. I don't know. Does Marcus Smart and a first-round pick plus, I don't know, something else from Boston going to them, does that make sense? Maybe. And then you can get Grant to Portland and CJ to Boston. Probably not pretty. I'm just trying to do things in my head. I don't think it's close, but I don't know. That's kind of a weird one. Yeah, no, Jeremy, as far as Verno, Chris is a great dude. He's covered the league for years. KOC, like there are like I am the smallest of fish in the smallest of ponds, but I know a lot of people who cover this league and work in this league. And when that caught fire, as far as the Billups background stuff, everybody was texting and DMing everybody. Did you know about this? Did you know about this? Did you know about this? Nobody knew about this. And that's why you think you're getting so much blowback and the pressure is because so many reporters are looking at it like, huh? And so you had a lot of questions. And they handled it really poorly. 3-team to acquire Siakam would be great. Yeah, it would. Siakam's that dude. I know he had a subpar performance in the bubble playoffs. I don't care. Give me 6'10" guys who can put the ball down on the floor in multi-positional defensive coverage and knock down shots. Yeah, please. I mean, those are unicorns in today's league. Nibble, Terry made broken rosters look good all the time. Gonna run out of tricks eventually. Yeah, talent wins out. It's a talent league, hands down. It is a talent league. For all of the stuff about Bud being this bad coach and they should fire him, they're in the freaking finals. Players play, coaches coach. Flat out, man. Flat out. It's just, there's no reason to sit here and scream about coaching unless they are detrimental. That's the thing. Let's see. Anyone else worry about Damian recruiting during the Olympics like I am? So it's a two-way street. Those conversations have gone on for years. Like the Heatles, Wade, Bosch, LeBron, like those were sowed a long, long time ago. That's how that stuff happens. Kyrie and KD, that stuff happened years ago. Was it the 2010 FIBA team had Steph, Dre, and KD and Iggy? Where do you think those guys all like got together and hung out? That's where this stuff happens. So problem is for Dame, this needed to happen an Olympic cycle or two ago. And about that, he got screwed flat out. If you want to know about the shoe wars between Nike and Adidas, there you go. There you go. That's the politics. If you want to see something nasty, you want to talk about the politics of the Olympic teams and Team USA, go just Google search the U.S. women's team and the controversy that's been going on there and the Agwumakes and playing for Nigeria. Yeah, politics is nasty and it exists in professional sports. Trust me. I saw one in here that I mentioned last night from Jeremy. Watching Paul hook lob balls to Ayton makes me cry laughing. I got about a dozen text messages last night from various people across the league last night after I tweeted something along the lines of watching Chris Paul be a master of lob pass. It's just beautiful. And just like a bunch of like frog tea and crying, laughing emojis, because everybody knows how much I love just how simple of a play that is and how much Damian Lillard struggles with it. It's such a strange thing. He's arguably the best pick and roll scorer in the NBA, maybe ever right now. He's that good. He can get guys on his hip and on his back and draw free throws off 3-pointers and pull-ups. The one, I say, there's two like real holes, quote unquote holes. Like you have to dig like for minutia to find this stuff with tape. That's the stupid thing. Like the holes in his game revolve around playmaking, passing, creating in tight spaces. The whole idea of him in a pick and roll getting in the paint. Like watch Chris Paul when he gets into the paint. At full speed, stop, decelerate, get the defender on his back, get the big to step up, and then throw in that lob pass over the top. Dame has this incredible, and this is his truly a gifted athletic ability, to accelerate and decelerate with the ball in space better than damn near anybody in the league. That's how he creates so much space with his step backs. Like he gets you leaning, and then he just back, yeet, over the top. It's dumb. It's dumb. It's dumb. It's dumb. It's different when he gets in the paint because he struggles making passes at full speed, particularly in the paint. Like if you watch him, he kind of gets caught sometimes. He goes, and that's when he throws the grenade, right? Watch Chris Paul. Number one, he very rarely gets caught in the air without it being on purpose. But watch him, watch John Morant, watch Russell Westbrook, watch Ben Simmons. Those guys, when they get in the paint, that's when they kill you. They murder you because you overcommit either to them and it's yeet right over the top, or it's a dumb, filthy rat pass to the corner to a wide open shooter. And Chris Paul is preternaturally stupid because he's my height and literally my age, and he's still making guys pay by using his eyes, his shoulders, his hips. They say those hips don't lie. Chris Paul's hips lie. They lie. They lie like crazy because he gets guys leaning the wrong way so much, and he makes guys pay. Maybe the most gifted basketball IQ as a playmaker ever. It's probably between him and Magic. It's just, it's pure poetry watching it. That's the reality. A lot of CJ to Philly. Deadly content. Jonathan Isaac. Listen, man. If Isaac could stay healthy, that's my dude. I love Isaac. I think he's a really unique player, but he's also made of glass, unfortunately. When you get that big, sometimes it just happens. I truly hope guys like him and Zack Collins, they find the fountain of youth and they stay healthy for like 6, 7, 8 years. Yes, Cody, we want more yeet in Portland. Just yeet right over the top. Am I the only one that was feeling negative excited for the finalists in the assistant coaching hire? No, and that's the problem. That's the problem. We're really looking for a veteran-laden crew and da-da-da-da. The guys that you want, and this isn't to say they can't work out, but again, the bumbling and the bungling of handling of the hire, that's the frustration. That's the frustration, right? Is that you're look over here, look over here, look over here, and then when you look over there, it's gone. So, can we get CP3 to train Dame this summer? Dame works his butt off. I have mentioned this before. I would not be surprised because I'm stupid and my big mouth gets heard in places it probably doesn't need to be heard or shouldn't be heard. But if Dame came back and just spent like the preseason just throwing lob passes to make me look stupid, it's just... I genuinely believe that he will add something to his game. I think you're seeing what point guards that can control the pace, not just at the three-point line and in the half court, but in the paint, what that does and what that unlocks for your team. Dame doesn't have many lob targets, though. They do, and they have. Harkless is a lob target. Derrick Jones Jr. is a lob. Derrick Jones Jr.'s lob rate was significantly lower, and he played almost the exact same minutes, had the exact same cut rate, and the exact same usage rate as he did in Miami. So if you want to say, well, Terry Stotts buried in the corner, that may be true. He still had the same cut rate and ran the same number of cut opportunities as he did with the coaching master himself, Eric Spoelstra. So either Terry doesn't know what he's doing and Spoelstra's stupid too, or you don't have a guy who's very good at looking for and setting up lob passes. Because I think Derrick's dunk rate was double in Miami, or close to double when I ran the numbers. I think that's probably your straightest line you can draw. Nurk's not a high flyer. That's for damn sure, but you can throw it near the rim and he can push one in. Like DeAndre Ayton's a cheat code. He's David Robinson athletically. It's a monster. As far as how many good leapers, he had Mason Plumlee, who, laugh all you want, Mason will go get it. There's no doubt about that. Ant will go get it. Nas will go get it. Pat Connaughton would go get it. Jake Layman would go get it. Like, they have had guys who, they had Nick Batum. Like, they have had, Lopez was actually, and LaMarcus were both great lob targets. They weren't high flyers, but high finishing percentages. Excuse me. I got to get a cough button on this thing in the studio when it's built. But yeah, I don't say this like to dump on Dame. I love Dame. I love his ability. I love his skill sets. Like I said, I have to nitpick to find things where, like, outside of defensive coverage and how he operates in the pick and roll defensively, where you're like, yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know, boss. But Tony Peters, Portland is the only coaching situation where we have to read stories about the other finalists. Why? Well, because Neil doesn't talk to anybody in this city outside of occasionally Jason Quick, more so Dwight Jaynes, and then nobody else. If news is leaking about Portland on a national level from anybody not named Woj, it did not come from Neil. Period, point blank. Yeah, Deadly. Harkless frustrated the hell out of me. There's no doubt about that. But if you want to look at a guy who's got a ton of talent and just happens to be good at basketball, like the things I've seen made about Ben Simmons, just imagine Ben Simmons, but like infinitely better. Or excuse me, Mohawks, but infinitely better. That's Ben Simmons. Yeah, Myers, honestly, Myers is a lob target. Listen, I know people feel a certain way about Myers, and I get it, but Myers is a lob threat. There's no doubt about that. And yes, I would love Batum back next year. Andre Miller, Hall of Fame alley-oop passer. Andre Miller is not only the Hall of Fame alley-oop passer, he is the lob passer. In my book, there has never been a better lob passer than Andre Miller. So he had Hoop Summit the year before last, and we were at Nike. Steve DeWall was actually there with us. And Andre showed up just out of nowhere, and it's one of the very, very, very few times I fanboyed. I love Andre. I love his game. I loved him before he came to Portland. I watched him when he was with the Cavs. Like, I loved his game. But if I could talk to anybody about this particular topic, I would just love to get Andre on and be like, yeah, man, I just do it. I just love the ball, because he got that high pitched voice. Andre's just an enigma, and I love him. But yeah. Exactly. Beaumont's, the numbers don't lie. Damon CJ don't throw lobs. It is a minute deficiency, but it's like one of those ones where you're like, those are free points. Just like Derrick Jones Jr. on a dunk is it's free points if you put it anywhere near. If you want, go back into the last year's videos down after we're done watching here and watch it, fast forward it, whatever. Get to the point where I talk to Derrick about lobs. And I'm like, you know that there's like a little bit of an issue. He's like, no, just put it anywhere near the backboard. And I'm like, oh, you sure? Yeah, sure. And, well, he had some that were outside the backboard that he didn't finish. And I texted him a few times, and it was just, kind of laugh with a little clip or his agent or something like that. And it's just like, yeah, it happens. But those are free points. And I think the Blazers missed out on a lot of those momentum type plays this year. And it sucks because, the Suns struggled in game one. Was that like in the fourth quarter? It looked like the Bucks were starting to come back. They got it to 7, and then they ran pick and roll, and they had the threat of Ayton and Chris Paul ups, and it was just open, and they blew the game back open. And something matters. Yeah, that's John. I'm stuttering and stammering here. This is from John. Dame needs to add more side-to-side dribbling, not just downhill. So, in retrospect, of once he turns the corner and gets in the paint, and that's that putting the defender in jail, right? That's when you get the defender either back behind you, where you can keep him back and again put him in jail and put him in a bad position, and that other big coming forward, and that's where you make that read, and that's what Trey killed all playoffs long with that lob to Capella over and over, and John Collins. They feasted on that, much in the same way CP3 has. But that's something I think that Dame tries to find a way to work that. David, DJ cares more about dunking hard than getting a bucket. I can tell you for certainty that's not the case. He just likes to dunk hard. He's a dunker. Like, CJ's that's just what he does. But Derek, he just likes to dunk hard. He's trying to make a play. That's kind of what he does. We just need a better offensive scheme. We're too predictable. They did get too predictable at the end, but they were also the number 2 offense in the NBA. Like, I understand some people's complaints, but you also, again, this is where I challenge people on stuff. Like, you got to take a step back. And I know the whole idea of like, well, they could be better. They could, or they could be worse because the ball is in Dame and CJ's hands less. That's the trade-off. Particularly in the playoffs, I get it. But during the regular season, it's a little bit much. Can Simmons run the pick and roll? Should we even talk about Simmons anymore? Simmons is on the table. Number one, Simmons can run the pick and roll. This is terrible live show stuff. But let me log in real quick, and I'll pull his numbers. His regular season numbers I know were better. So synergy, play type. Let's see. As the ball handler, 76ers, Philadelphia, 2021. Okay, so wait, go on totals. There we go. So Simmons ran in 58 games, ran 150 pick and roll plays as the ball handler. Which accounts for, 17% of his offense? Yeah, 17%. His rate was not good, 0.75. But you go back over the last couple of years, and it gets better. That's 0.8. I think he had like a 1.0 year, 178 possessions in 18-19. And then this is where it was a lot more in 17-18, 430 possessions, and accounted for a third of his offense. The thing you have to remember with Ben is that he has, outside of like JJ Redick and Cove doing it for 2 years, and this year with Seth Curry, they haven't had like a ton of floor spacing around him. So I tend to believe he'd be okay, particularly as a secondary player. And this is where a Dame Ben Simmons pick and roll, where you trap Damian Lillard and Ben Simmons is playing 4-on-3 downhill. That's the money spot. That's where you're looking. But he's an okay pick and roll player as the ball handler, but even more so if the weak side has Damian Lillard on it. I think that's where things get a little nicer for you. I'm gonna pivot here real quick. I want to make sure, because last time I did not get to the questions, and I felt awful because I told everybody to answer their questions. So let me get into a couple of these. This from Rip City Home Dad at Rip City Home Dad. How likely and realistic is it that Olshey works beyond his pride and actually tries to shop CJ and or Nurk and swing for the fence this offseason? I think both those things are happening. I think that you have to, from a financial standpoint, you have to look at trading Yusuf Nurkic. Doesn't mean you have to trade him. I think you have to look at it because his deal is expiring. You can only give 120% raise, so it can only get his deal up to $14 million average. I think being a clutch client means that he'll probably want more. Whether or not he'll get it, I don't know. Establishing his contract value is very difficult right now. Establishing what his trade value is, a little less so. It's a little bit easier to understand. I know of multiple teams that are interested in him. But CJ, they're shopping him. Like they have to. They don't have a choice at this point in time. Whether or not that consummated anything, I don't know. But they're definitely shopping both of them. This from Jeremy Miller. What would be your percentage of us trading CJ or Nurk? Can we actually get a player that moves the needle to be a title contender with those two? I get Ben Simmons. I think he's saying I get Ben Simmons, but anyone else? It depends. Realistically, it depends. Maybe you find some team. Atlanta's a team I've been talking to a few folks down there and around the league. Atlanta's in a weird, funky spot because they've got all of these guys and they need to consolidate. Does Yusuf Nurkic make sense for them? I don't know. Do they want some playmaking there big, or do they want a rim-running threat like Capella? Like, having Nurk would alleviate a lot of their issues as far as additional playmaking and creation, but he's also less flexible defensively. You can't play a lot of really aggressive coverages, and they can't really cover up for Trae Young all that well. So that's your trade-off. What about CJ? Does CJ and Trae backcourt make any sense? I don't think so. But perhaps there's a three-way deal where, again, Boston always ends up being a likely team here because that's the team that kind of makes sense. Does Marcus Smart playing alongside Trae Young make sense? I think so. A veteran and a pick for one of their young guys like Cam Reddish and the ability to take on John Collins, and then you figure out something else to toss in there. Yeah, I think you could find a way in that regard. It gets a little dicier, that's for damn sure. But I think that there's plenty of stuff there that you can kind of figure that out. Let me see here. I had a couple different batches of questions from time to time. I do genuinely believe there is a way to salvage. I've always believed there's a way to salvage, and that is moving CJ and capitalizing on the right trade. And that's why I'm so adamant about Ben Simmons, because I do believe in the talent. And I saw somebody in here from John about Ben Simmons. That is the issue, and it has been the issue since he left Australia. Like, him going to LSU wasn't a coincidence because he knew he could get away with stuff there. That's the danger of trading for Ben Simmons. But perhaps getting him out of a market, getting him into Portland and getting him under Damian Lillard. If you're going to say that he is that guy, then this is the kind of risk you look to take because the talent's just too real. Cam Reddish, young prospect, Herter. Listen, I'm really high on Herter. I think Cam can be better than he has been. DeAndre Hunter is turning out to be a stud, but that's be entertaining. I'm here for the Ben Simmons and Jaylen Brown 2022 Blazers. Listen, if they had to hit the hard reset and they ended up with Ben Simmons and Jaylen Brown because they traded CJ for Ben and Dame for Jaylen Brown and picks, hard to be too upset about that. Yeah, you downgrade from Dame, but you definitely got better than CJ. So, and you got a lot younger, and you got the most versatile player type as far as wings in the world. So I think that'd be kind of interesting. This is kind of a common question. Who do you think off this roster would be the most realistic get from Team USA? There's no secret about, and I should say that's from Fly Sky High, Skyler. Draymond Green and Dame have a good relationship. Dame's representatives have made no qualms about that on social media. Draymond would play really well here. I don't like CJ for Draymond straight up because of the lack of shot creation that creates, and that Draymond's older. Like I am terrified of Draymond's athleticism just cratering, just completely falling off a cliff. His basketball IQ is insane. Like he can still cover probably 4s and 5s and maybe some 3s, but like if the athleticism just goes, he's done. And I'm not talking about like a quick twitch, like hyper athletic, just the ability to take that one step here, that step there, just be quicker, faster, smarter than everybody else. I think that makes sense. I retweeted and quote tweeted this in like 18 different manners, and it was a really dumb idea. But that's just the way these things go. There's the one that has all the questions. This from Josh Bullock at Jab Aspie. Maybe a silly question, but if the article from at True Hoop is to be believed, why is Olshey still here? There's a toxic attitude to have and will lead to wasting Dame's talents. It kind of goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning. Again, if you guys want, just go to at True Hoop on Twitter. You can find the article. It's not great. It's a pretty damning article. That's what I like, flat out. That article sucked. Like, as far as if you're Neil, you're reading that, you're just like, really, dog? Like, I think that's how it goes. But he's also been here longer than anybody else. Like, the point is made in the article. Neil's been here longer than anybody. Nobody else has left. He's been the GM or president now longer than Jody's owned the team. They brought in guys like McGowan and Dwayne Hankins, and I'm trying to think of who else has been here for a little while. McGowan has kind of elevated a little bit higher since then. But yeah, and then Terry and his staff, and now they're all gone. So maybe, I know Yim hasn't even been around that long either. So yeah, he's been here a long time. And I think that's part of it. It's the whole idea of like allergic to change. Okay, this is another question I've gotten quite a few times, and I think it's worth pointing out and highlighting a couple things here. This is from Tony at PNW_roots. Assuming the roster stays the same, what offensive lineup or /lineup changes would you expect to see in order to maximize this team's ability and win games? And Tony, this isn't to sound like a jerk. I don't believe in any way, shape, matter, or form that this roster can like actually stay the same. And I mean that because of the financial implications. I don't believe you can bring back Norm if you still have CJ. You can't get guys to fill out the back end of the roster. So, and you don't have Gary Trent Jr., so you've lost either Norm or Gary. And I think that puts you in a precarious situation. So I understand what you're saying as far as like, so let's say that they did bring back who they could bring back except for Norm. So now you've got Dame, CJ, Derek, Cove, and Nurk. Does that sound familiar? Because you can't start anybody else. You can maybe start Nasir, but now you're asking Derek to carry a larger burden. You don't have Zack, who you thought you might have coming into the season last year. And now you've got to get another roster spot for a guy that you're hoping can play. And now you're just scraping the bottom of the barrel for vet minimum guys because they just don't have any money. So, again, it's not to like poo-poo the question. It's just the framing of it. I think it needs to be adjusted because they can't run back. They can't run it back. They can't. Like, I mean, they can, but the luxury tax bill is going to be obscene, and they're going to be. I don't think there's any way in hell that Norm comes back if CJ's on this team. I mean, maybe if they paid him like extra money on top of it, but now you're in a more precarious situation financially. So I think those two things are in conflict. This from Tom Cogswell at Thomas Cogswell. If CJ Simmons doesn't happen, who is the backup option? Gordon Hayward, providing he's healthy. Dame, Norm, Hayward, Rocco, Nurkic is an interesting lineup. Jimmy Butler, what else besides CJ would need to be in that deal? Listen, I like Gordon Hayward. I think if he was healthy, like if he passed the fitness test, would be like perfect kind of player. He's a guy that does everything. He can be a playmaker. He can run the offense. He can score from the inside and outside. He can create off the bounce. He's a good secondary creator. He's got size. Like, there's a reason he has made the money he has is because he's a good player. But he's also, again, wait for it, made of glass. It's just a problem, particularly in this market. Let's be honest. They can't really take those chances. As far as the bigger guys, I think we've kind of run through the list. It's just about selling it. It's either that or it's going younger and redirecting those assets somewhere else for something out that we didn't believe the Blazers could attain. I think that's maybe the other way. Bradstreet Racing at Bob Bradstreet. And this is going to be a question here, I think, in another month. I've been talking to a lot of folks around the league. And I'll get into the question first and we'll go back to it. Would you rather bring back Melo, bring in Kevin Love off of the buyout market? Also, do you think the Blazers bring Zach Collins back on a, say, a $3 to $5 million deal and give it one last shot? I just don't see Neil giving up so easy on him considering what he gave up and passed up. So the Love thing. Cleveland's very active right now in how they want to shape their roster. They've got a lot of different. They really like Garland. I know some folks around the league believe Colin Sexton is Donovan Mitchell-esque. If you look at his numbers, they're pretty damn close at 22 years old. Jarrett Allen, they love. Taurean Prince is a guy that they really like. They'd be willing to give him up in a trade, but they like him. Kevin's still a part of that team. They like Kevin. If the Cavs move off Colin Sexton, they will buy out Kevin Love, or he will get traded and then bought out. And I have heard that he is very much, it will be Brooklyn or Portland. So, and here's the thing. If you do have, and I have fought against Kevin Love for so long, especially the CJ for Love stuff. Never in a million years would I want to do that. But Kevin Love coming off the bench, now we're cooking with gas, ladies and gentlemen. Because you don't need Cantor. You don't need Melo. Why? Because you have them both in one player. So now you can put a guy, now you can go spend money on a vet minimum guy who's a much better defender. Why? Because Kevin Love can space the floor. He doesn't just need to be in